well?
I can! There she
Okay,
is!
cool.
Oh my gosh!
This is so
Welcome in, fam. And no worries, Chris, I got you. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, just in case people didn't know. I know we're just getting started right now, so we'll wait for a couple more of our family to come through. Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday are my podcast interview days. So I usually host them at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's when we host the interviews. So just so that you guys know, coming through, the ones who like to come and show love. I'm so excited for tonight. So it's very rare that I know the women in real life that I interview. But I have had the beautiful opportunity to meet Miss Aimee, and I know her, but I will let her tell her side of that. Welcome in, Miss Aimee. How are you, Mama?
I'm doing good. How are you doing? This is
I'm doing
exciting.
well. It is good to have you. I'm honored that we get a little bit of your time tonight. So first and foremost, thank you for being here. Um, Thank you for taking time out of your day to come and talk to us and be on MV Podcast. So, without further ado, would you like to introduce yourself to the people that are listening in and just kind of let them know a little bit about you?
Yeah, so well, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. I think this is like so much fun, and we don't always get the time and space to do this outside of like the work we do. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. My name is Aimee Contreras Ocanico. I'm located in Utah. I community organize here in Utah, specifically in the West Side. Um, I've gotten involved within like immigration work, reproductive work, reproductive rights, and then recently, like over a year ago, I joined like this more radical group. That's where I got to meet Gina, and it's been really a pleasure of getting to work alongside um, the Brown Berets, and then also my professional work. I am a community organizer. Fortunately, I work at a nonprofit, and that's what's been able to help me also learn a lot of tools when it comes to community organizing. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me. And I sorry, I do want to say because I woke up so happy today. Happy Pride Month. I'm a queer brown woman, and I'm very proud of that. And specifically coming from the state of Utah, it's a very conservative state. And I think when we get to express and celebrate that, we become more free, we become more happy, and we can be just who we are. So, yeah.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to say I'm super proud of you tonight. I was really excited. I felt like I was fangirling over you. I was like, oh my gosh, Amy's gonna be up there. I cannot wait. So thank you for coming. I couldn't be more proud to call you my little sister and my sister at arms. For those of you who didn't catch it, Aime and I both are brown berets. So I'm super honored to have a fellow sister up here that I'm able to interview for tonight. So thank you for that. So my first question for you, Aime, would be, how has the concept of Chicanismo or Chicana feminism evolved since the Chicano movement, and how do you apply it in today's political climate?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think I definitely want to give kudos to my parents. They never stopped reminding us to be proud of our roots, where we are from, that we are Mexican, to always continue learning Spanish. Even outside the house, I think growing up, I didn't like really recognize the importance of it until like I was actually much older and was in like my late teens where I recognized that there's a lot of issues um, within like immigration. And I really do appreciate my parents, but I guess within Chicanismo and how that's evolved within my own like personal work and the work I do within like our community is like sometimes we forget that we're also indigenous. And that we do have indigenous roots. Like sometimes a lot of maybe I wouldn't say like all Mexicans, but I think most Mexicans forget that we do have indigenous roots, and we're not just Chicanos or Chicanas. We're also indigenous, so I think I definitely want to highlight that. I've gotten to do the work of getting to learn about my ancestors and hear their stories. I I think as a Chicana indigenous woman, it's very mind blowing personally how they got to live their life and the freedom I have to get to live my life. Um, I think this is something I've mentioned with my mom. Um, is that it's beautiful that I can like today like choose my own partner, choose where I live, choose to travel because or choose to seek an education because I'm sure my grandmothers and my great grandmothers and so on would have wanted that. I look back and I've gotten to learn their stories of like how they were either married young or had to have children young and immediately have form a family. And I look back and I'm like, whoa, like I don't know how they could have done it at their age, especially myself at my age. But even then, so sorry. That was like a little personal tangent. I think it's beautiful that we get to realize that like we have this personal freedom that we can like exercise and do things for our community. I think that's definitely tools that I want to continue and want to encourage like single women or not just single women, but like women in general that we like if it weren't for our ancestors, we wouldn't be here. And that it is a privilege to have this freedom and like learn and do things, even the most simplest things, that maybe our grandmothers couldn't do. So I think that's definitely something I move intentionally when it comes to community organizing. When I get to interact with other community members, when we do like workshops or when we do like events, you're not just interacting with community members, you're also interacting with like let's say your tío or your tía, like because it's family. That's our community right there.
I'm really proud of you that you know you pay homage to who our people are, right? Like where we come from. And I'm seeing I've noticed it since you know, well, given the political climate we're in, we'll just say that our people have kind of like had this like mass awakening of, hey, hold on, why do you guys keep telling us to go back to where we come from? Our people been here. So they've really been kind of like opening their eye up to who we are, you know? So I'm glad that you spoke on that. And like it's so important, right? It's so important that we pay homage to our ancestors and the people that came before us, especially the Chingona women. So I'm glad that you that you brought that up. That was super important. Thank you. Um, so my next question is, can you share a personal experience where you felt the intersection of your gender and ethnicity created unique challenges or strengths?
I've kind of been going through that over this past couple of months, honestly. I've been doing like workshops when it comes to storytelling, intersecting immigration and reproductive health and reproductive rights. So we ended up having like a workshop of like, who are you? Like, what is calling you to do this work? And so I had to really sit down and think about that because I grew up Catholic and I was a devoted Catholic girl growing up. Like, if you could see me now, I don't know if you would think that I was like such a devoted Catholic girl because I would go to church group all the time, youth group. I love going to church and I wouldn't say that I don't love it now. I don't go anymore, but what's it called? Like, if you go, cool, more power to you because if you feel like that makes you feel safe, beautiful. It is beautiful to like experience those feelings, but that was me. And it wasn't until like I had this clashing of also understanding that I am a queer woman and realizing that my church doesn't accept that and it also doesn't accept like abortion and um many more things. And I think what I ended up realizing there was this clash of like I can still be a good human. Like I am a good person still, and I don't need that. I have personally gone through like my own spiritual awakening of like, you know what, I don't I will pray to my ancestors and I will pray to God and I will pray the way that I've I grew up normally doing in the Catholic way, in the Catholic prayers per se. So I do know that, and I will continue that. Um, so I think the best way I can describe that is there was this deconstruction of a good Catholic Chicana girl. And it just kind of was like mind blowing because I look back and I'm like, wow, I was really devout. Like, I was a devout Catholic girl. My parents always like, we would always go to church. And I think once like I got older, I just kind of realized like that's not for me. And especially organizing in a way that like aligns with my values and recognizing the values of like the Catholic Church, like we did not align. So therefore I just kind of stopped. And what's it called? I'm not a person who believes in the institution of church. I'm not a big believer in institutions. Um, so what's it called? But like that's not my thing. I'm more spiritual. I will pray. I do believe in a higher being. God could be a man or a woman, and I've just kind of learned that. I've learned that with like my own mother. Like she's also gone her through her own spiritual awakening, and she's been a lot more accepting of me. Um, because recognizing that sometimes people who do go to church like are sometimes not the best people, and sometimes will use it to weaponize, and that's something I've also like learned that I'm not a big fan of. So I think that's definitely something I've like had to sit with at one point, like last month. So yeah, that's been a little bit of a clash, and I really do um love getting to sit with who I am becoming.
I love that. I think like as Chicanos or as Latinos, right, or whatever people want to identify themselves as, I personally choose to try to get away from those colonial terms, like those colonial labels. And it's super important that we deconstruct from the religious aspect because a lot of people don't know there's religious trauma within our community,
Yeah.
like big time religious trauma within our community, and
Mhm.
understanding the just just the gravity of how it was forced onto our people and the depravity behind it, like the actions that had to take place for our people to like be at a point to where we're at, where like we're when you think of a Mexican person, you know that they're just automatically probably Catholic. You know what I mean? Like it took a lot of violence, be like to for us to get there. Is what I'm saying. So I'm glad that you brought that up. It's super important. Then, yeah, thank you. So my next question is, how do you navigate the balance between advocating for your community while challenging, I know you're going to love this. I know you, I mean, while challenging the patriarchal structures within it.
Ooh. um, I I first and foremost definitely want to give kudos to the men who give us space, specifically within the Brown Berets. Like I really do love my comrades, my like brothers, because they really did give us that space to dive deep into Chicana feminism. And I think I had like stated this before, like in our conversations, how like when we think of feminism, automatically some people will think of white feminism. And that's not something I condone. I do. I dislike that. Um, so I think diving into that and doing the work with my other sisters, like we um we had to do a whole presentation because we had to really sit down and be like, if we are doing this work for our community, we have to recognize that our work is intersectional. And some of us forget that, like, when we're doing this work, we're only doing like immigrant rights or Chicano like events, let's say. But a lot of that is tied to like reproductive health, food insecurity, environmental racism, that's all intersected and connected. And so there is like, there's no single issue. And so when it comes to really like confronting toxic masculinity or the systemic patriarchy, we really have to call it out for what it is, and for what it is. And I was gonna say, I don't know. I think we've had some great moments where we have sat down with our comrades and we do have these presentations and we've talked about it. And we have instilled like bylaws and rules how to best like implement this work, but also not tolerating things like SA, not tolerating things like rape culture and calling it out for what it is. I really think of one good of my comrades who's been very vocal. Whenever he does see something, like he'll call it out, and sometimes that's the point of being called out is it feels uncomfortable, and you really have to face it. And at least within like the environment in Utah, it can feel really heavy, because it's a very like white state. But on top of that, you, as like I would say in my experience, like navigating like that type of toxic masculinity, but the toxic masculinity within our culture is really heavy too. So I think it's just like calling it out for what it is. I remind myself I am the daughter of my mother and my father, and my father has like definitely been one of those men um who have tested what it looks like to be like toxic masculine. And I say like I'm his daughter because I'm not gonna allow like him as a man, like if he yells at me, like if he yells at me, that's like my only tolerance, right? Like let's say I'm not gonna allow some other man like yelling at me, like who do you think you are, you know? And like I think it's important that like we do call out men when they do make mistakes, and it's important for them to learn from them and then to solve them. Um, and yeah, even then is making space for other women and other like in other areas when it comes to like LGBTQ plus rights, reproductive health. When it I reproductive health is what I'm more aware of, and LGBTQ plus. But I want, sorry, what I meant to say is like within the whole reproductive justice movement, white women were the ones leading it, my bad. And they totally forgot about like brown women and black women. And so it's like we also have to call that out in itself, how like white women are not making that space either and in making space for us because we're also deserving of that. So it can, yeah, it can look complicated, but I think definitely if that ever, it can look different. Sorry, I'm like going all over the place, but like the importance of when that happens is you have to call it out. Call it out for what it is. If the person takes it uncomfortably, they have to sit with it.
So don't apologize. You got it. You spoke on a lot of good things, and it's gonna lead to my next question. It's not a question that I had ready for you, but you reminded me. So I'm really like interested to get your perspective on what you think. But one, two. I love that you gave kudos to the men in our community who do the work, who do work on dismantling the patriarchy, because that in and of itself is colonial mindset, right? It wasn't traditionally how our men were thinking or were taught to think. That was one of the poisons that came with colonialism. So I'm glad that you gave kudos to that. And also too, we have a couple of women in the community that are from Utah. So hopefully they follow you and you guys can connect. That would be great. So it was leading into my next question that popped into my head when you were talking about this. What to you, because I have my own version and I've talked about it on my platform before, but what to you looks like, how do you address patriarchy or misogyny um, within revolutionary circles? Because as being activists and just being in the circle that we're in, how do you address it, or how would you go about addressing it, and do you think that it exists?
Oh, for sure, it exists like a lot, and it sucks that a lot of us women at times have to be the ones to address it. At least the way I address it is like, hey, like that's not okay. I think from what I've learned with community guidelines is you have to speak from the I. So I have to speak for myself and be like, hey, that wasn't okay. Like I felt confused or I felt this. I do not agree with this. Or as a org, we do not align with that. So it's important to like speak for yourself and then like see if connect with others and see if that's something that they would or would not align with. I know for a fact like these are conversations like I really also want to give kudos to like my brother, my father, and like my partner. Like, it's really hard for me to trust certain men at times, especially in like today's society. Um, within today's society, like I say that because when it comes to dating, a lot of men aren't open. They're more invested in conservative values and like toxic masculinity or more toxic patri- patri- the patriarchy, systemic patriarchy. Um, and so it's important to call it out and address it from like the beginning. I did like at one point had to address like when it came to them like I bring up my dating life. I don't mean for it to be like so personally that way, but like I bring that up because I at one point like was questioned like and was told like I cannot date you because you're queer. And I had already been lit on. And so it's like I told you who I was from the beginning. I told you my values from the beginning, and you lied to me. So it's very sad that I did have that unfortunate experience, and that makes me really sad. Which is good also because that the universe had other what's it called um plans for me, and I'm
Yes.
very grateful for my partner because he is very supportive and he's not conservative, thankfully. And so it's like addressing it from the beginning. At least I had to do the work and be like, these are my values. This is what I align with. I am a queer brown woman. Are you do you agree? Do you not agree? If you don't agree, okay, cool. Just let me dip. You know, like um I think like I had said originally, you just have to call it out from the beginning and be as respectful. And I understand that like at times for me, like I've seen how people can get very riled up. And so it's like important to just like even then like take a step back. And to anyone who's also addressing it, like definitely give yourself a break and um setting boundaries. I think that's something I've really gotten to enjoy as a Chicana woman. Like it's not easy within our culture to set boundaries, not even with our own mothers or sisters or brothers. But yeah.
So, for you, you say that you're a Chicana and you're proud of that. So for you, what does being as a Chicana, how does that go hand in hand with you paying homage to your indigenous roots? What does it mean for you to be a Chicana?
Um, for me to what it means to me to be a Chicana is to be able to flourish like within my roots, recognizing that I am Mexican, but I'm not just Mexican, I'm also indigenous. I'm very grateful that my parents uh a little backstory, like I heard this one colleague of mine mentioning how he had to send his kids to summer camp. And I was like, I never went to summer camp. And I was like, wait, why didn't I go to summer camp? Because my parents, for a couple of years in the summer, they would send us to Mexico instead. So that was like our summer camp. And I just find it funny, you know, that like I don't know that like I don't align with that, you know, like or not that I don't align with it. Like I didn't have that experience going to a summer camp, but my summer camp was going to a rancho where my grandparents are from, seeing where my dad grew up. And I think as a way to honor my roots is the fact that I got to go to Mexico and see where my dad grew up, where my mother grew up, but also like recognizing their stories. Storytelling is such a sacred thing within our culture. That's how we pass down like medicine. That's how we pass down stories and how we acknowledge whether it's curses or good luck. And so what's it called? Um, I've it's been beautiful getting to meet like my parents' family and also recognizing that they were well, one, they're human, but they had a life before me. and they had a life before any of my siblings. And so, so my parents are from Puebla. They're from a city called Tehuacan. And I've gotten to learn and hear stories how like my dad is from a certain pueblo. I know what it's called, but I'll just like keep it to myself. This pueblo where his family like all lived like on a whole acre, and tios and tias like lived on that acre. And I remember when I was my first time going to that pueblo, I we had this really, I don't know if anybody else could I know for a fact people could what's it called, relate, there you go, relate to the story. But I remember like my grandmother introduced us to a whole bunch of family, and each of them was like, oh, I'm your tío, your tía, your primo, your prima, and it just kind of, the line kept going, and so we're like, oh my god, we have so much family. um so I think even then, but like there's so like connecting within our roots also looks, it can look different, um like within our medicine, like when we pick up a certain vibra, like we for sure are whipping out the sage and or cleansing ourselves with the egg. Like it's
Yep.
something that is sacred to us, and we believe it works because there's like feeling and intention and so many beautiful feelings behind that type of practice. I know I definitely have had to like be a guide with for my own mom. I think it's interesting how I've like have recognized that I've had more of a deeper connection with my ancestors, I would say. My mom is like, she discovered a lot of cool things. Like she started working on her family tree, and she learned a lot of like crazy things that I also wasn't aware of. But like the way I kind of got deeper into it is because like I connected my name to like my ancestors, if that makes
Mm.
sense. So when I had met this professor, and he was a professor within social work, and I really loved how he introduced himself. And I'll say it like within, like as myself. He was like, well, sorry. The way he introduced himself was like, my name is Aimee Contreras Ocanico. I am the daughter of blank 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 blank
Mhm.
blank. I'm not gonna say their name, sorry. And then I am the granddaughter of blank 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 blank. And so it's like paying homage to them, and it's a way of introduction that if it weren't for them, I would not be here. And so
Mm.
after that, I was like, whoa, I that is so true. If it weren't for my father, if it weren't for my mother, my grandparents, and then above that, like I really would not be here. I don't know like where my life would be, and if my parents didn't, at least I'll speak for my parents, if they didn't take certain steps um to be here, I wouldn't be here, you know. And I really give kudos to them. I think as well is recognizing the sacrifices they did and made as immigrants to leave their family behind, their friends behind, their careers, everything they knew behind. And if I ever like, I don't know how I could do it. Like I still feel like I'm 16. I feel like a little pollito, and my mom is
Aw.
still like the the big hen, you know, the chicken. And yeah, that's I think connecting to our roots is something that always tends to evolve, and there's no right way to do it. Or not a right way, sorry. There's not a specific way how that looks.
Mm.
And yeah.
That's super important. There's one thing that's really unique to I maybe because I'm biased, right? Because I'm Mexican, but there's one thing that's unique to Mexicans, or at least the ones that I know, um, is that even through colonialism, even through all the atrocity, the forced assimilation, we kept, Mexicans specifically, we kept a lot of our indigenous practices. And that's what's so like I look back now, and like you were saying, I'm is even like growing up, we'll look back, and even like the huevo cleansing, like the egg cleansing, or I don't do that porque lo vas a dar mal ojo. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of the our words, molcajete,
Mhm.
aguacate, mole, like a lot of our words, and specifically to like the Mexican people, are still like we still kept a lot of our indigenous ways that were just kind of like embedded into our everyday life. So like I thought it was really important that I ask you that question. Because like for me, being a Chicana is just the catalyst of of like reclaiming my indigenous roots and like going back home to my people. If it wasn't for me saying that I was a Chicana and living that experience, I don't think that I would pay homage or even think about my indigenous roots. You know what I mean? And I know there's some people that might think differently, but for me, that's how I think. And I'm glad that you spoke on, and I'm glad you kind of said the similar thing. You know, because being a Chicana in the United States is a very unique point of view, is a very unique, you know what I mean? Because like I always quote what Selena's dad said, we're not Mexican enough for the Mexicans, we're not American enough. So you know what I mean? Like we have to maneuver our way, but like that doesn't take away, like you said, come summer vacation, spring vacation, my mom was a single mom. She would take me to Mexico with my grandma, and I would spend most of my time, like 4 months out of the year in Mexico. So I was experiencing both lives. So for me, like being a Chicana, it means all of that. It means all of that. It means experiencing long waits at the border or, you know, at the puente and 2 hours to go across, and you know, summertime going to Juarez and my grandma teaching me all these types of hierbas. Even that in of itself, abuelitas were still holding on to our traditional way of life, our indigenous ways of life. When it comes to the herbal medicine, when it comes to remedies, praying, all types of stuff, our existence is resistance, and I don't think people really truly understand that about the Mexican people. It's something that's really unique to us. So I really appreciate your answers, and you saying what you needed to say. I'm sorry, because they were powerful, and I wanted other people to hear that outside of me, because I'm always talking about that on my platform, and I'm like, people probably get tired of me saying these things. So it's really nice to have you coming in and a breath of fresh air. So I'm gonna bring up somebody to ask you a question um, that I think would have a good question, and also you guys are in the same area, so I hopefully you guys can connect in that way. Hola, hello, Cupida,
Hi.
hello. I brought you up because I think you and her have a lot of similarities. So if you would like to ask her a question, I would be appreciative.
Sure. Hi, Amy. I'm from Utah too. I'm in the heart of the Mormons, and um, with I don't want to dox myself. Let's just say I'm like in the middle of like where the countryside starts, and then as you keep going further, it's like city. Um, it starts with the P and it ends with the O.
Oh no.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
I'm a little bit more north,
Oh my gosh. Well,
but I've definitely gone to that city many times. I have like family friends out there.
oh my gosh. It's well, first of all, I'm so glad you're not here with me because it's horrible, and I'm glad that you're somewhere where there's a little bit more of community than down here. Um but my question to you is as I was living in Utah, how do you as a brown woman deal with the racism and the colorism and also the anti-blackness that's going on with the Latino community and with the racism I mean with the white tea people in Utah?
That's a really great question because I think unfortunately, like I've shared, like we have to be the ones to call it out. And at times there will be times where other POC peeps will call it out too. And so I think for sure, like as a woman who kind of did experience like um what is it called? I think you're sorry, I want to say that your question also reminds me of like how black and brown women tend to be hypersexualized. And I think that's definitely something I've also run into and something that's made me so sad because I realized that I had to really sit down with myself and be like, really? Am I just a piece of meat? Like, do you just like do some of these people just see me that way, you know? And I really had to sit down, and it was really like gut wrenching, and I had to align my chakras. I go to this lady to align my chakras. And so it was a very like heartbreaking type of situation I was going through. This was like something I went through like 2 years ago. But when it comes to the other things, I've had to kind of learn to that I had to speak up for myself and call out people that what they've done was harmful to me, and not just to me, but also like institutions. We have to call out institutions that at times, if they really want to cater and have a connection with our community, they have to take their time, because trust takes time. And at least where I work, um, it's not a place where a lot of our community members will trust due to a lot of taboos, unfortunately, when it comes to sexual health. I'll speak for that. Like, there's a lot of taboos within that, and so it causes a lot of mistrust, because we grew up a certain way of like how we expect these taboos to go about. I hope I'm making sense. But unfortunately, it's also learning terms like being tokenized, like tokenism. Like, that's a really heavy thing that unfortunately, like I know a lot of my peers have gone through. It's not okay when it happens, and calling out white people. I recently went into a DEI training that takes place. I'll speak for Park City. It's a it's a really great training. I really did enjoy it. But I remember going into that training, and all I see was like a lot of white people. There was POC, but I did see white people where I felt like, oh my God, like I'm in enemy territory. But I've
Right.
learned when I was there, like, you know what, these people aren't here to hurt me. They're here to learn how to be better allies, because they were learning things about DEI. Um, and at one point, I remember this older lady. I ended up being her favorite, whatever that means. But what's it called? She had told me, because at one point they had separated the POC people and the white folks, and they had the white folks learn about like colonization, like throughout the Latin America, and then through America here. Um, and I remember she was like, "What did y'all go like talk about?" Like, we were going into lunch. She was asking like, "What did y'all do? We learned about this, and this, and now I feel sad." And so it's like, okay, sit with it, like in my head, like you have to sit with those unfortunate feelings and events, because yeah, that wasn't your fault, right? But you as an ally, like what else can you do? And so like I remember like I just kind of sat there silent. I've learned that as a brown woman, I am too much. Like that's who I am, like period. But also like I've learned that I'm not like here as a brown woman. I'm not here to make you comfortable.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
what I had told them was like, you're feeling this way. What I can best tell you is you have to sit with it, process it. And I usually say get over it. But if you really want to like do better, then let it go and be a better ally. You really have to just recognize your wrongs and see how you can just move forward and be better. Because there's no point of like dwelling in that feeling and not doing anything about it. It's beautiful. It was really cool that they got that opportunity to learn about those things, because for me it wasn't something new. It was something I've like been going through my whole life, and I was very vocal about like how there were certain things like I really like what they were talking about, case studies, what that looks like, what it looks like to actually be DEI, be diverse, um, what's it called, equitable and inclusive, and really being there for the people, and just like calling it out. Like it can be uncomfortable. I know I've definitely been uncomfortable, but I'd rather like call it out than to be like sitting with regret.
Mm.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it having uncomfortable conversations are needed because then um I think that's a way of us moving forward and growing as people. And then we also get to see if people actually want to grow or they don't. but yeah, I'm so glad that you brought up the whole thing about hyper smell like I don't know how to say it. Hyper.
Hy- Hypersexualization.
Yes,
Or
thank you.
hypersexual.
Hypersexualization. That's going on, especially here in Utah, and I'm so glad you understand where people, as us like brown people in Utah come from, because we do get fetishized a lot too, and we get used as tokens as well.
Hmm.
So it's a, I think the culture here in Utah is just its own little bubble. And once you get out of Utah and you like go and visit other places, it's like, damn, not everything's just like that.
Hmm.
So thank you. Thank you for answering the questions and stuff. And me as an ex Mormon, um, it's been rough here in Utah. So I'm so glad you can sympathize and understand where we as brown women come from. And I gave you a follow, so hopefully we can link up and talk more. But yeah, thank you for answering my question, and I appreciate it. And thank you so much, Gina, for giving me the opportunity to talk to Aimee.
Thank you. I really appreciate the question, and I'll definitely reach out.
Thank you, Cupida. I want to welcome up Salish. Salish, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself and then ask her your question?
Thank you, Gina. Hello. I guess let me back up. Let me formally introduce myself. Haklaseo, si I am Hakwea Chiretsit, Siwa Bisadak, Chich Tuadu Squawko Beshit, si I am Haklea Chid, I Kasiam si I am. Hello. It's good to meet you. My name is Salish, and I come from the Pacific Northwest here in Washington State, a small tribe that formerly known as Skokomish, but we're called the Tuaduk Twana people. And I I didn't catch the whole podcast. I just caught like the tail end. But knowing that you're on a panel with a good sister like Gina, I know, pretty much the background of everything. And I always try to do my best to uphold, support, especially our matriarchal voices. You guys are so important, to our people and what we make up as indigenous people. So, but you basically answered my question that I put in the chat. But it was more centered around like the youth. So basically, my question was, if you had to leave one teaching behind for the youth, what would that be?
Find yourself. I think at least growing up in Utah and then growing up in a certain institution, you are peer pressured at times of how you must grow up, of how you must be. Even like within our own peers, like growing up in high school, like how you will like experience peer pressure from like your own peers, like to either get involved in certain situations or in certain activities. And so I think I say that because it took me a while to really find who I was. Um, I at one point like was going through this crisis of whether or not I wanted to get married. I wasn't proposed to, but I say that because growing up, that was like one of the biggest things I would hear a lot from my parents is like, te tienes que casar bien, casate, te tienes que poner un vestido blanco, like, you have to be pure on your wedding day. So what I had said is like, my parents would tell me like, you have to wear a white dress, you have to get married the right way, you have to do this. And then also outside of that, hearing like women like you are supposed to be a mom, like you're supposed to be this, you're supposed to have kids, you have to go to college, do this, do that. And so really truly for youth is like give yourself the space to find yourself, to learn what you like, what you don't like. Um and yeah, like I had come out of like a really toxic relationship a couple years ago, and I really had to ask myself that question because I at one point felt guilty, and I felt like a failure because I couldn't give that wish to my mom specifically because she got married the right way. She got married in a Catholic church with my father, and um like, and I'm glad, I'm happy that was beautiful for her and that she enjoyed it, but I don't think that was something that aligned with me. And I truly did feel like a failure because I wasn't able to give that to her. And so I had to deconstruct that consciously and subconsciously, because growing up you will hear some things, and then subconsciously it could just get ingrained into you. And so truly find yourself what you love to do, your hobbies, invest in yourself, invest in the things you love to do, spend time with your family and friends, and like love will come, and your career will unfold itself beautifully. And so that's something I would definitely encourage the youth, is just to find themselves.
No, that's a beautiful answer, and that was definitely something that I really got from you from when I first came in and started listening to you. It sounds like you really want to for the youth to find themselves, and not only that, but to be okay with who you are, and more proudly to know where you come from. And one of the reasons, or a couple of reasons why I really pose that question is because a lot of us, we hear, on this app and everything else that it takes a village to raise a child, right? But the deeper aspect of that is, what does that village look like, right? So if you have a village full of, strong matriarchal women that are nurturing and fostering children that are brought up with, being okay with who you are, knowing where you come from, all these beautiful things that you talk about, like, you just imagine what that village ends up being. And then another thing that we always talk about is the echoes of our ancestors, right? But what's not really talked about enough is what carries those echoes of our ancestors. And for us, of where we come from, it's the woman's essence, because 9 times out of 10, whoever's hearing those echoes are the children. So it needs that woman's touch. It needs that woman's essence in order to carry it through to fully go where it's supposed to go. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you answering my question. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Salish. We love Salish. So we are coming up to the end of our interview here in a few minutes, but I have a couple more questions. But before we get to the questions, I want to tell you how much I appreciate you for coming again and taking the time out of your day to be on our little podcast, on our little area of the internet. And I want to say that I personally, I'm super proud of you, and I'm super proud to know you. And once again, I'm super proud to call you my little sister. So thank you for being here. I have a couple of more questions. Oh, just a little info though for people who are listening in. And Saji down in the comments, she told me this. So for everybody who didn't know, wearing a white dress for Mexicanas or for indigenous people is not our way. That came with colonialism. Traditionally, we would wear very vibrant colors when we would get married or when we would have our ceremony. Because, like having marriage, like getting married, that's not even ours either. But it was traditionally very vibrant colors. You have the sarape colors, you have, traditional indigenous wear. So when they came over here and the priests saw that, they didn't like that because they saw red. And to them, red was like the color of, being promiscuous or being like labeled a whore or things like that. So they're like, oh no, look at those colors. Those colors are too much. They can't wear those. So they made everybody start wearing white. So white dresses aren't even traditionally ours. So I'm glad that I found that out prior to me getting married and having a wedding, because I'm like, oh no, I'm definitely not having a white wedding gown now. So that was just a little tidbit of information. I learned about that from my nanas. Oh, okay, pure. Yeah, I didn't know that until Saji said that, and I was like, wow. Just for the people in here who didn't know, now you know. So one question, my last couple of questions is, how do you navigate the balance between advocating for your community oh no, I said this, I'm sorry. What specific local or grassroots issues are you currently prioritizing in your regions, and why?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely with what's been going on with Yellow. We've definitely been very vocal and have been connecting more with the immigrant community here, with our community. That's been something we've had to like do our best to navigate in doing workshops and connecting with our gente because unfortunately our capacity has been low. And so it's not something that we've like stopped. We just have had to take a pause on. And it will definitely continue. So that's something we're still doing. And even within my work, like we want to continue those workshops because we keep hearing a lot of community feedback of how like these workshops are very important. Like know your rights workshop, sorry, just to clarify. Those types of workshops. And we've like at one point did like connect with a lawyer or we listened into a local lawyer who was like giving us tips on how to best provide this information such as like don't like not running away from officers because that would make the case more difficult for the lawyers. So connecting in that way and then also like food security we have our local hood pantry that is located in Currens between Currens and West Valley here in Sally County. um it is I don't have the the address memorized, but we do have one and that's something we want to expand. We have been working in expanding in other areas in Salt Lake County. We want to like as a beret chapter we would love to what's it called be able to connect with other cities even outside of Salt Lake County. But due to our capacity, that has been our focus. And specifically, like our name is Brown Berets de West Valley. So we are like focusing more of focusing more on cities in the west side. So yeah. And then other than that, like we have collaborations as well with other groups here, other grassroots groups here, such as like Armed Queers. um, they keep us in the loop all the time of the events they're doing. So even then, like being informed of like our own gun safety. And we want to at one point like do those types of workshops of like how to utilize an armed weapon and with safety and precautions because that is a lot of responsibility. And then what else? I feel like I'm missing one. We want to add two more things. Sorry, we want to do like a community carne asada because at least I forgot to mention this, but like um joy is a form of resilience. So it's important that we do share joy with our community
We have
and
a
whether that
sister that
be
says that all the time on this platform. All the
period,
time.
period. But it's true because like joy is a form of saying that like I heard my sorry, I heard um I think it was the first person, Cupida, who had said that like or was it you that like us existing is a form of resistance. That like
Yes.
joy is also a form of like resistance because like it's important for us to convivir con our gente and to be able to express this joy and to be able to like as women, I will say as women, like it's important for us to shake our ass, to shake our hips, because that's how we can best connect with our roots, but also like let go of that trauma. And so definitely connecting with our community through a community carne asada, because that also brings home to us, like who didn't have the carne asadas on their like Saturday evenings or Friday evenings, right? So yeah, and then other than that, I think we're one of our other soon to be projects we really do want to keep get the ball going is doing like a back to school night, giving away like donated items or like what's it called stuff for when kids go back to school. And so yeah,
Like school
that's a
supplies and
cool
stuff.
thing. Yeah, there you go. School supplies, my bad, I forgot. Like backpacks, pens, crayons. So yeah, other than that, like that's been a couple things that we've been working on. And why? Well, I think when it comes to supporting our community, these are ways that we have to best uplift them, whether that's through like informative events, through joyful events. Like that's the best way we can connect with our community members and also hear what the needs are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. I have one last question and then we can let you go get on your evening. Because you had mentioned like working with other organizations outside of just like the Brown Berets in your city. So um that actually led into my next question, and it's, in your experience, what does ethnic allyship look like, and how can individuals outside of the Chicano community best support your work?
Let me answer the first one
Okay.
because it's big brain power right now. Um,
Period.
I think also within, because I work for a nonprofit, and I'll just keep it at that. So recognizing that an ethical way to best connect with community and also orgs is, I learned this from my great colleague of mine. I see her as one of my mentors, but this quote she would say is so beautiful and so important is moving at the speed of trust. You cannot rush good relationships, you cannot rush good things,
Mm,
and you really have to build that trust. Like it will take time and there's no rush. But once that trust is built, once it's there, like things will be okay, and that relationship can maintain itself. It's like any other like normal relationship. Like you have to build that trust, and it's important that communication does happen there. And what else? Like setting the boundaries, setting things like, oh, I can't open or I can't share this, or I don't know if I'll be able to do that, or I'll reach back out and see where our capacity is at. Is being clear with where we're at too, or with the intentions of our boundaries. And I think at times, working within community organizing, sometimes you will interact with other orgs that are, what's it called, transactional.
yeah.
And you have to call that out too. You have to be like, nope, like we cannot make this a transactional thing. It has to be collaborative, it has to work for both groups, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's at one point it's going to be like a tit for tat situation.
Mm.
And that's not always ethical either. But yeah, that's for the first question. And can you remind me the second question?
Yes, of course. So the second part to that question is, how can individuals outside of the Chicano movement best support your work?
I would say give us like follow our page. We are Brown Berets the West Valley. I think it's Brown Berets underscore the West Valley on Instagram. And then donate to our local hood pantry. There's more information on our Instagram. Um, and what else? When we do have community events, come to the events, spread them through word of mouth, through relational organizing. That's how we can best like um, connect with our community. Sometimes we do not use social media as a platform because we do not want to cause fear. We want to be able to pass the word, like back in the day, like how we like firing, let's say, or like telling your tia. Um, and then what else? Like just being an ally. If I really, really do emphasize this specifically here in the state of Utah, is if and not just for our events, but if an event says for POC only, don't and you're a white person, do not go to the event. Do not go. Give us our space. Give us a space for us to just be with our own community. And I love our white allies, but at times we just do need our own space. We do need that time to be in community without feeling like there's invaders. Not everyone's like that. I just want to say that and clarify. But I have seen events here, like within the queer like space in Utah, like where events will say this is a QT BIPOC event only, and then some white allies go, but it's like you don't get it, like like why are you here, Um, but yeah, so that's how I can best encourage people. And like I had said earlier, if you at one point feel white guilt, good, like feel it, process it, and then let it go. Because what else can you do? Just be better. Be learn more DEI practices and learn and try to listen to more stories when it comes to like um black and brown people's experiences. Do not go to a black and brown person and be like, so what was it like doing this? Okay, teach me more about like DEI, because it's not our job to do that for y'all. It's really not.
One
And
more
it
time for
really,
the people in the back.
no, seriously, like it's not our job to do that because it at times just can like make us re-experience trauma.
Yeah,
And we don't want to do that. Like our stories and our experiences are sacred, and sometimes the people who get it. And the people who don't, pues ni modos, like try to do your own research without judging and try to be ethical and mindful of your own privilege and practices.
absolutely. Thank you. So for people who don't know, I don't give anybody who comes and does the interview on the podcast the questions in advance. I think I kind of took a footnote from what Chief Bigfoot did to us well, to me when he interviewed me, and I loved it. He was like, "Nope, you're not getting nothing." And I love that because people get to see how true and genuine the person is, and just how amazing people are when they're on here. So, thank you for your time. It was truly an honor. You know, when I first started the podcast, I had like a whole group of people, a whole group of women, really, I should say, that I was like, oh my gosh, I want them. And you were like, boom. That's why I reached out right away. I was like, Aimee. Yeah,
Say
I'm
less.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Really, like all of our brown beret sisters are amazing. If you know, you know. So thank you so much for being here, Mama. For those who we came in late or weren't here, if you haven't followed TIPM, which is that little box down, that is an initiative that we got started. It's called the Indigenous Peoples Movement. It's just connecting people from the north to the south, from Canada all the way down to Chile. That's what we aim for. Whether you are federally connected as far like a federally recognized tribe, or you're not, if you don't have federal recognition, but you are indigenous, whether it's our southern indigenous relatives, it's just making that connection. So follow TIPM on all platforms. TIPM is on TikTok, it's on Discord, and it is on YouTube. It's TIPM hyphen 26 on YouTube. So I'll be putting the interview on there shortly after this. Thank you so much. If you guys want the links, please let myself or one of the mods know, and they will get you the link to the Discord if you are not in the community. I'm going to send you the link. So thank you guys. Thank you for being here. I love you, sis.
Thank you so much for having me. It was honestly really fun talking about this, and I really appreciate you. I love the work you're doing, so please keep going. Échale ganas. If it weren't
Eso.
for you, if it weren't for you, I would not be here either. So thank you.
Oh, that made me cry. Thank you guys. I'll see you, mamas.
Alrighty,
Thank you for coming up,
alrighty,
sis.
bye. Thank
Bye.
you.